This one study tactic for my ADHD and dyslexia is what helped me get through college and medical school. Growing up with ADHD and dyslexia was a challenge, especially a combination of both having dyslexia and ADHD made studying very difficult, and even just comprehending any information, especially when the teacher goes up there and spouts all this jargon and writes a bunch of stuff. It was hard for me to follow along and to be able to keep up to writing notes. You know how it is. With having ADHD, we hear something going through, but then we're like, wait, what did he say? And then you're like asking your, your student, not your student, but your colleague next, what did he say? And you don't want to disturb them. I dealt with this all the time, and it became a huge challenge. In fact, my first chemistry class that I had, very first year in college, I did running start, but very first year in running start doing college, in my chemistry class, I absolutely bombed that class. Every exam I would fail, and I tried to work with my teacher. He was terrible. Absolutely terrible. He was not willing to work with me, and I just couldn't keep up, and I actually failed that class, and that was devastating. I thought I wasn't smart, and that professor actually told me to forget about even going into medical school, forget even going into any of the sciences, because I sucked at that, and told me forget about it. Made me cry. I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I need to rethink things. But luckily, because I had stubborn persistence, I had a lot of people, really encouraging me to push forward, because this was my dream. This is something that I knew I had to do for myself. So what I did is I decided to, okay, I'm going to retake this class, but with a different teacher. And what I did is I interviewed teachers. That's what I would do, is I would interview teachers. And this is really important. When you're going into college, I would interview teachers before even deciding to take their class. See if you mesh with them, see if you like how they teach. Ask all these different types of questions. And so I did find a teacher that I thought would work better. And before that, what I did is I went to the library, and I would spend, so much time in the library trying to find ways to study. I would have books and tapes, covering my face. And the librarians knew me really, really well, because I would always come in with trying to find new information about how to study, especially with the ADHD brain and having dyslexia, knowing what is the best tactics for me to be able to learn this. And I came across something that changed my life, absolutely changed my life for when it came to studying and actually taking exams and tests. And what I discovered was mind mapping. If you have not heard about mind mapping and you are a visual learner, oh my gosh, this was a godsend for me, because what mind mapping is, just to kind of give you a picture of what mind map is, basically how it works is there's a central idea. So when your professor they always have a topic. That's the thing. You got to understand how your professor or teacher structures the way they teach, but typically they will have a topic, and how mind map works is you have a piece of paper, you draw in the very center, and you make it very visual with characters and stuff like that. Make it as funny as possible. And you draw the center idea, and then they'll talk about subtopics as they're talking about in that lecture that day. And then you use keywords and you use visuals and you branch off to it. So how mind map works is a center idea, then you branch off to it, and then also have those subtopics and then key point elements. And so eventually it looks like neurons connecting together. And this is why this mind mapping works so well, is because there's different types of subtopics that are connected to the main central idea, just like how neurons work for actually having memory. That's how neurons work within our brain. So by doing this, it made a huge difference. So how I would use this in lecture is as my professor. So I found a chemistry teacher he was really organized, and that was really important for me. He would actually write everything down that he would say, which made a huge difference for me to catch up with that. And everything that he would write, I would create these mind maps. He would write down the topic. I'm like, all right, great. And then I would draw like a funny character or whatever related to that topic. And then I would draw it. Then I'd branch out, because you'd have subtopics. And he would even bullet point things. It made it so easy to follow for me. And then I would have several pieces of paper. So we would have like an exam. I think we had 3 exams within the quarter. And I would have several of these papers. And then I would make a master mind map. So how a master mind map works is essentially you have a visual for each one of those notes that you create, each one of those mind maps. So you have an actual specific target picture. Do you see how this is layering? So you have the ones that you had for each day of the class. Then you have the master one, which will have just one picture for each one of those notes. So when you are studying for the final exam, you have this visual in your mind. So when I would come prepped for the exam, I could visualize it all because I could see all those pictures and those notes, and it just all connected. So when I had questions come, I would be visualizing those particular types of mind maps that I created, and I absolutely aced it. I aced my whole class, every exam, and did really, really well because I found this one tactic. Made all the difference for me. And guess what? This is exactly what I used throughout college, throughout all my other classes, as well as throughout medical school. And this is what made me be able to get through college and medical school, by using this one tactic that made all the difference by using mind maps. If you enjoyed this video and you're maybe, okay, I'm not a visual learner, but I need some other ADHD tactics to learn, well, check out this playlist right here where I talk about all different types of ADHD tactics and other types of learners to implement.